Hey, it's Stephanie again. This week we're talking about our thoughts and, more importantly, our self talk. What are the thoughts? What are the things that we're saying to ourselves? And how does that affect our lives? So, I wanted to take just a little bit of time and share a little bit about me and how I have struggled with this in the past. When I was um, when I was a child, I had a good upbringing. I didn't have, a lot of conflict in my home. We had um, some different challenges. My mother had a major stroke and brain surgery when I was in elementary school, and so that introduced some challenges into our home. But otherwise, I had a good childhood. When I was in my first year of college, I ended up getting pregnant and got married, and we had a beautiful son that I wouldn't trade any of it for the world because he's awesome. Um, but that marriage came with its own challenges too. And after a couple of years, we divorced, and well, we filed for divorce, and it took a couple of years for the divorce to be final. And there was a lot of pain during that time, um, going through just the divorce itself, and everything that was involved in that, along with just me internalizing what could I have done differently, what did I do wrong in the relationship, how could this happen? My parents, they're still married. I don't come from a broken home. Why was this happening to me? So I had a lot of thoughts around that, and um, shortly after my divorce, well, actually, a little before my divorce was final, I started dating this one man that I was working with. And we, at first, kept our relationship pretty secret because we were working together and we wanted to keep things separate. But after a while, it became, known, and I actually moved to Little Rock to stay with him. He had moved back here after his job was done where I was working, and I moved here just and followed him. And I'm thankful for that because I absolutely love living in Little Rock. But there were a lot of challenges in that relationship too. He was 11 years older, and I was insecure in my own being. While I was a very independent person, I still required a lot of edification and needed to know that I was loved and that I was worthy. And being with somebody that was older like that, I didn't get a lot of that. So there was a lot of doubt that crept in, and the the thoughts that I had. We were actually together for 5 or 6 years, so we were together for a long time, and this was in my mid 20s. Um, but during that time, I had a lot of thoughts that came into my head of, well, we've been together so long. Why hasn't he asked me to marry him? Why doesn't he want to marry me? And those thoughts became really dark because I really was looking at what was wrong with me and saying a lot of things to myself of, well, I have a kid, I have a kid, and I have all this baggage from my previous marriage, and he just doesn't want to deal with that. And I started to question his love for me and whether or not he really cared about me. And those thoughts really spiraled into many times driving down the highway thinking, well, if I could just get in a car wreck, not like I really contemplated how could I crash my car, not die, because I wanted to know if he'd come to the hospital. Would he care enough to come? Would he take care of me? Would he help me? Um, and that was pretty bad. And when I realized after I'd had that thought several times, um, that something had to change. That just wasn't right. It was that was a bit over the top. But in the moments, it was very valid. Does he really care about? How do I get him to prove? What needs to happen for him to prove that he cares about me? And I really let that spiral. And I didn't ever wreck my car. Um, I, at that time, I wasn't going to church, um, but I did have a relationship with Jesus in that I prayed every day. It was a very simple prayer. Jesus, watch over us, protect us, me and my son, keep us safe. Um, Thank you for today. It was very simple. And it was only when things got really, really bad that I would go to Jesus and ask for help. And thankfully, he was always there for me. Um, and in this particular situation, that's what I ended up doing. I really, just got quiet one night laying in my bed, and I think everything just began to really pile on me. Was dealing with ex-in-laws and my ex-husband and visitation, and then dealing with this insecurity in my own worth and value and lovability. Um, and I just broke one night laying in my bed, and I started my normal prayer, and then just was crying. I was crying. I cried. It was one of many nights that I just felt, I was just going to cry myself to sleep. And at some point in that, as I was crying, I prayed, Jesus, I can't do this anymore. I can't be angry, and I can't be scared, and I can't I can't keep thinking I've got to hurt myself to see if this guy really cares about me. I don't want to carry any of that anymore. And when I let that go and I really laid that before God and asked him to take it from me, asked him to remove that from me, he did. And it was an experience that I had where I felt it from the top of my head all the way down to my toes. This release, I can't even describe what it feels like, but you can almost think of like something just kind of scanning my body, starting at my head and just going all the way down through my toes. And it was a physical feeling that I had, but I had this immense sense of peace afterwards. But my mind, I had to work on still. While I didn't get angry at my ex-in-laws or my ex-husband as much, I was able to let things go easier. I still struggled some with the relationship that I was in, and my feelings of worthiness. And but it was easier for me to take those thoughts captive. It was easier for me when the thoughts came to say, you know what, it is what it is, and I'm choosing to stay in this relationship. And if marriage is what I'm after, and he can't give that to me, then it's my choice to not be in this relationship anymore. And if I'd rather at least be with him, whether I'm married or not, um, then that was my choice too. And so I really started to rethink those things and realize that we were both hurt people. I was hurt through my marriage. He was hurt through his previous marriage. And he really, through that previous marriage, really had no desire to ever get married again. Um, and so I guess God just kind of kept revealing some of that to me along the way as I started taking those thoughts captive and saying, no, he does love you. It, and his love for you has nothing to do with the hurt from his ex-wife and the previous marriage, and it's something he's just going to have to work out on his own. Um, so I hope that you find that some encouragement in this, um, that you can take those thoughts captive and you can change your outlook. Um, I'm not perfect in this. I still have issues here and there. Um, not long ago with my current husband, I was going through a time where a lot of that insecurity came back up again, and I realized that I actually had that same thought of does he really love me? Does he really care about me? What would happen if I was hurt? Would he really be there for me? And when I had that thought, it was a flashback to 20 years ago when I went through that. And I realized, whoa, 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 whoa. No, we're not going there again. Satan, you're not taking me down that path. And I stopped. I was actually driving in my car at the time, so everything seemed very, very much like a flashback to 20 years before, when I'd be in my car thinking, well, if I just crashed my car, I'd be able to see if he really cared, right? And so, um, at that moment when I realized that spiral was happening again, I had to take that and I took it to Jesus and I said, whoa, okay, so Jesus, this is what I'm hearing in my head, that I'm unworthy, that I'm not I'm not loved, that he doesn't care for me, that he doesn't want to be around me, whatever it was, all of these thoughts that were going through my head. And I said, a simple question. Jesus, is any of that real? And in my head, I heard no. Just a simple no. And that was enough. That was all I needed. Thank you, Jesus. I am worthy. I am lovable. He does care for me. He cares greatly for me. And I was able to turn those thoughts around and get a smile back on my face. And that's what it takes. When you, I think the first part of it is that realization that you're in the spiral, that you're going downhill fast, right? And realizing, wait, stop. I'm hearing all of these negative things about me in my head. Jesus, is any of this real? Is that what you think about me? And asking those two questions, especially, because really, in this earth, on this earth, it really doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about you, because it only matters what he thinks about you. And if you can get in tune with that, then it becomes a lot easier to catch it when Satan tries to fire those fiery darts at you and change those thoughts to negatives. And it creates a shield, that shield that you need for those fiery darts, to be able to take that to Jesus and say, what do you think about me? So I'd like you to try this little exercise. You can do it as part of your journaling today. Find a quiet place. And I don't know if you have issues with these kind of major negative thoughts where you're actually contemplating hurting yourself to prove something. Hopefully not. But even if you're not, everybody has negative thoughts. Maybe you think that you're just not really good at something, and so when you're not good at something, you say, "Oh, I'm so stupid. I can't believe I did that." Oh my, and the thoughts can spiral that way. So take a moment tonight with your journaling, and in your prayer journal, um, I want you to ask these 3 questions, and I want you to pause. Like, I want you to write the question down, and then I want you to pause and see what thought comes to mind, okay? And I want you to write down what you hear in your head. And I will warn you, the enemy can still fire those fiery darts when you're doing this exercise. So if any of those thoughts that come to mind when you ask these questions are negative or condemning, make you feel shameful, those are the enemy. That is not Jesus. Jesus never condemns, and he never pushes us into a place of shame. So that's going to be a big indicator that you really need to take those thoughts then captive and say, Jesus, is that real? Is that really you speaking to me? Is that the Jesus of Nazareth who died on the cross, was buried, and rose again? Is that you? So I want you to take a moment to do that. So these are your questions that I want you to ask. One, Jesus, what about me brings you joy? The second question I want you to ask is, what aspect of my personality do you see as strongest? Like, what do you like about me? Okay, so I want you to start with those two questions. And if you don't hear anything, let's say you ask the question, you write it down, and you stop and you just sit and listen for an answer. And you sit and you sit and you sit and you hear nothing. Comment here on this post, and I'd like to try to schedule some time to work with you personally if we can. I'll probably have somebody else join us on a call, so that we can pray for you and help you to hear the Holy Spirit speak. So those are your two questions. I want you to know that you're not alone. Okay, everybody has negative thoughts, and some of us have learned to catch them and toss them out before they cause major harm and damage. Um, and some of us are still learning. And this may be new material for some of you. Maybe you've never really thought about those thoughts not being reality. So I want to share something with you. And if you do have like a lot of issues um, with negativity in your mind, this is a fantastic book for you to pick up. It's called Battlefield of the Mind by Joyce Meyer. And I just want to read this one section to you about when she kind of realized that she was letting her thoughts get the better of her. And so she says, you should take inventory on a regular basis and ask yourself, what have I been thinking about? Spend some time examining your thought life. Think about what you're thinking about. Thinking about what you're thinking about is very valuable because Satan usually deceives people into thinking that the source of their misery or trouble is something other than what it really is. He wants them to think they are unhappy due to what is going on around them, their circumstances. But the misery is actually due to what is going on inside them, their thoughts. For many years, I, Joyce Meyer, really believed that I was unhappy because of things others were doing or not doing. I blamed my misery on my husband and my children. If they would be different, if they would be more attentive to my needs, if they would help around the house more, then I thought I would be happy. It was one thing and then another thing for years. I finally faced the truth, which was that none of these things had to make me unhappy if I chose to have the right attitude. My thoughts were what was making me miserable. Let me say it one final time. Think about what you were thinking about. You may locate some of your problems and be on your way to freedom very quickly. You may want to add some of that to your journaling tonight, too, if you find yourself going in that spiral. Write some of those things down. Write down what you're thinking about. Write down those negative thoughts, because then you can take that written sheet of paper and you can look at it and you can ask Jesus, is anything here real? Is any of this valid? And let him answer you, because I think you'll be surprised at the answer. Once you have done this journaling today,